Hi there, my name is Dr. Katie Saint, and this video is about the difference between compassion and enabling. And I think this is a really important topic to talk about because sometimes we do things in the name of compassion that are actually hurting people. And so it's really good to be aware of what helps versus what hurts, or where we could be adding to the limitations of somebody. And so I've worked with a lot of different people over the years who are just heartbroken over different situations their kids are in or the way they're acting. And there's solutions to those behaviors and there's solutions to those situations. And so sometimes the solutions feel counterintuitive. And so I want to talk through that a little bit and talk about how sometimes the compassionate thing to do is actually the hard thing to do, and it feels not very compassionate in the moment, but in the end your child is going to be so much happier and so much better off. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we're going to dive into those topics. Here we go. Alrighty. So, first things first, I want to start with a common thing that happens that comes from a really loving place. Sometimes parents will allow a child to kind of be in charge. And what I mean by that is the child rarely is told no. Parents try really hard to give that child everything they want, and they kind of tailor their life around that child. And sometimes it happens slowly over time because their child has problem behaviors, and so it's easier to make the child happy than to face the behavior or work through that. And they truly feel and are trying to do the nice, kind thing. Like, I don't mind accommodating to you. You really care about this, and so I will happily do it your way because it doesn't matter to me as much as it matters to you. And so that's kind of the compassionate perspective. But actually, what happens inside of a child when they run the show is it increases their anxiety. We have a biological need as a child to have a parent as an authority figure. And so we actually lose our sense of security if we call the shots and if we're in charge. So what happens is a child's anxiety will increase. And so their efforts to control the environment will also increase because they feel unstable and they feel not as secure. And so it kind of becomes this cycle that people get caught in where a child feels a little bit unstable and insecure, and so they control more, and parents are trying to make them feel secure and feel happy and feel satisfied, so they're giving into that. And so the cycle continues. Another thing that happens with that is children lose skills. A lot of times people are doing things for them, or they're stuck in the same routine over and over, and so people aren't learning needed skills that they need to do and need to have for successful living. And so the parent being in charge, the parent telling the child no, the parent limiting video game time, what they can eat, different things like that are really needed for a child's happiness. And sometimes in the moment that feels mean. It feels like we're telling our child no and we're making them unhappy. But long term, it is really good for their mental health and it makes them feel more secure and more stable. Another factor is parent stress. When a child's in charge, it can be very stressful for parents, and it typically increases problem behaviors. There's a reason why divorce rates are super high if you have a child with extreme behaviors. It's really hard to live in an environment like that. And so when the child gets to call the shots, inevitably there'll be situations where you can't help it. Like if they ask to go to Disneyland, you can't say yes to that all the time, and so then there's this conflict that naturally occurs, and there's this inconsistency where children get upset and often have problem behaviors because most of the time they get a yes and this time they didn't, and that's frustrating for them. Another thing that occurs with this is there's less emotional regulation. When a child has a problem behavior and we're giving into that to to help them feel better, to help kind of make the problem behavior go away, we are teaching them to be dysregulated. They are unconsciously learning that when I scream, when I hit, when I cry, then I get what I want. And so this is the method I should use to get what I want. So our brains are unconsciously recording all of the time what works and what doesn't. And so we will just naturally do what's worked for us in the past. And so if our brain is learning being dysregulated helps to get me things, I'm going to keep being dysregulated. So another thing to focus on is children doing things themselves. So this example always stands out to me because I was so surprised by it. I went to a conference a few years back, and while I was gone, my kid made his own oatmeal. And I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but when I found out about this, I was so surprised. I'm like, I've been making you oatmeal all the time and you're capable of this? I had no idea. So just out of habit, I had been cooking all the meals, like doing everything for them just because they're my kids and that's what I do. And so that was very eye-opening for me that, like they can make their own meals once in a while. This is good for them. If I'm always doing this, they don't get to learn how to cook, or they don't get that independence of mom is gone and I want oatmeal and she's not here to make it for me, so I can't have it, right? They have more independence. They can meet their own needs better if I'm not constantly doing things for them. So this is a really, really common way where whether a kid has a disability or not, when they move out of home and they've never learned how to do laundry or grocery shop or clean, they really struggle. That transition into adulthood is a lot harder if they don't get to practice it in the safety of their home. So this has to start at a young age to make it the easiest transition possible, but it's never too late to start trying. So if we do it from little on, it just becomes normal. The child slowly develops the skills over the years, and it's a super smooth transition, not stressful at all. But if we wait till a child is a teenager or an adult and then we start, there might be some pushback. There might be some resistance, like, hey, why do I have to do it now? And so that's where you can lovingly explain, like, hey, these are life skills that you really need, and I'm doing you a disservice if I don't teach you these skills. You will not be able to meet your needs as well. You will be dependent on other people if I don't teach you how to do this. So I am protecting you because I can't always be there to meet every single need. So I want you to have the skills so you can meet your own needs. So the next is there's higher risk for failure if the skills aren't practiced first. And so that's really good to keep in mind that we cannot protect our children 24/7. We cannot be with them 24/7. And so if we aren't working on practicing these things and the exposure in our own home, there is a risk that they will be exposed to this when we're not around and we will not be there to protect them. And if they had no prior exposure, the risk for failure is a lot higher. Versus if you expose them to it while you're with them, you can lovingly show them how, you can encourage them, you can be there along the way to support them and make it not a stressful environment or learning opportunity. So the next thing to be mindful of is when we do things for our kids all the time, we are implying that they can't do it themselves. And a lot of times kids will pick up on this, even if they don't consciously tell you or know that, oh, this is how I feel. It's evident when their confidence and their willingness to try new things. You'll see it come out when they're really hesitant, when they're afraid to leave their comfort zone. If they're protected and if somebody's doing everything for them their whole life, they're going to feel like they're not capable. They're going to feel like my protectors, my parents have never given me this opportunity, and therefore I'm not capable of it. I should not risk putting myself out there. So when we push our kids to try new things, when we push our kids to be independent, what we're telling them is, I believe in you. I know you're capable of this, and you might be scared, you might be nervous, but I want you to see for yourself that you are capable of this. And so that's going to open up so many doors for them. That's going to help them face fears. That's going to help them take on new challenges. And so it's really, really important we do this. So what about the whole if they don't feel like it? And so this is where parents often feel compassionate and are like, well, they don't like this. I shouldn't be pushing this on them if they don't like it. So there is a balance to this. I'm not telling you to make your child do everything they don't like. Absolutely not. I don't want their life to be miserable. I want them to have tons of fun, tons of reinforcing activities. But I also want them to know how to face things they don't like and how to tolerate non-preferred activities. Because inevitably in life, there are things we don't like. To be employed, you have to be able to tolerate non-preferred things. To have relationships, you need to be able to tolerate non-preferred things. This is such an important life skill. So that means if a child doesn't want to do something, or a young adult, or whoever you're working with, that's where we can lovingly partner with them and say, hey, I know you don't like this, so let's brainstorm about how we can get through it. What coping skills can we use? What can we do afterwards to celebrate that we did it? Partner with them and help them see, like, the more we can work on this, the more we can get you to tolerate this and be comfortable, the happier you're going to be. Because if you avoid everything that makes you uncomfortable, your world is going to be so small and so limited. So we need that life skill of facing discomfort, doing things we don't want to do if we want to live a full and meaningful and happy life. So what about the whole, I feel awful telling my child no? I met some really loving parents who struggle with this. They love their kids so much. They have a big heart. And some people feel guilty about their child's diagnosis, or they feel just sad for the pain that their child's had to go through. And so they look for ways to compensate for that. And one of the ways they do that is by not saying no. And so it's important people understand that this is a myth, that never telling your child no does not make them happier. It actually makes them less happy. It increases anxiety. So I love this study. I think it's a really good example of why that is. So there was a study done where they built a fence and around a playground, and then where they had another playground without a fence. And so what they found was the playground with the fence, the children utilized the entire playground. The playground without a fence, the children stuck mostly to the middle and used about 50% less of the playground. And so this study was really cool to demonstrate that when we set boundaries for children, we give them security. We reduce anxiety because we say, you can feel safe, you can feel comfortable, you can feel successful with everything inside this boundary. Versus if you don't set a boundary, they don't know where unsafe is. They don't know where the risk is, where the danger is, and so then everything is scary. So if you set that clear and consistent boundary, children can have that security and they can have that safety and confidence to know, I'm within the boundary. I've got nothing to worry about. I can relax and be a kid and have fun and do my thing. Versus if boundaries are unclear or inconsistent, children don't know, and children are gonna naturally have anxiety then, and you're gonna see different behaviors come out because they don't have a clear understanding of what expectations are. So what about addressing the confidence? So we already talked about how not doing it for them reduces their confidence. So what we need to do to build confidence is exposure. So, sitting with your child, say they're afraid to jump off a rock. You know they're safe. You know that they will not get hurt. You can hold their hand. So you sit with them and you encourage them and you praise them and you say, you know what? You got this. I'm going to hold your hand. We're going to do it together. And, I'll wait with you to face your fear. I know this is scary, but you are capable. So confidence can be built in small moments like that. And then the second they jump off that rock, you give them a big hug, you spin them around, you praise them, and you tell them, you know what? You faced your fear and you proved that you are capable. You proved that you are able to do this. I hope you remember that, because you are more capable than you give yourself credit for. So take those little opportunities to help them build that confidence. Really spell out for them that they have the skill and that their fear is lying to them. And sometimes you're going to have to do things afraid in order to live the life that is going to be the most meaningful. Our fear is always telling us not to do things, but if we always listen to that, we're going to be so limited. So next is that false sense of safety. So when we stay in our comfort zone, when we protect, like, oh, don't do that, you might fall, you might hurt, you might, all of those fears, telling children all the time, like, be careful, be careful, be careful. We think we're protecting them, but sometimes we're creating more fears. So instead of giving the warning, talk about how to navigate it safely. Talk about, like, so using the climbing example, say something like, if you have your hands touching at all times, you'll be safer. So describe it in that way rather than describing the fear. It's okay to say, like, if you fall off that cliff, you'll die. If there's a very clear danger, it is okay to spell that out. But when we're working on exposure, when we're working on confidence, we want to talk about how to do it safe. And we want to talk about, hey, if you want to talk to that person and you're nervous about it, here's a few tips for how you can be successful, rather than focusing on, remember, if you do it wrong, they're not going to like you. So how we phrase it is going to be important. So what do you do if they're super anxious, panic attacks, all that kind of stuff? So this is where parents get caught up a lot and are feeling super compassionate, and rightfully so, that they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't work on this. They're so anxious. They're having a panic attack, things like that. So keep in mind, if your child's anxiety is that bad, that means that we need to work on it, and we should not run from it. Because when we run from things that are anxious, when we don't do what makes us fearful, that fear grows. And so in our brain, it said, hey, I escaped it and it worked. The bad thing didn't happen, so I should escape more. And if we're having panic attacks, that means the anxiety is pretty extreme. Your world's going to get smaller and smaller. Your ability to have jobs, all that kind of stuff is going to get more and more limited if we don't work on that exposure. So we need to work on that exposure in a really loving way. I love Temple Grandin's book where she talks about this. Her book is called The Loving Push. And she's so grateful to her mother who pushed her to do a lot of things she didn't want to do. She talks about how she had panic attacks going to the grocery store and different things like that. It would be so natural for so many people to be like, oh my gosh, you're having a panic attack. You don't have to go to the grocery store. I will go and get groceries without you. Totally okay, I can do that for you because I love you, right? But if she did that, Temple talks about how I can't be an independent adult if I can't go to the grocery store. If my mom lovingly let me escape the grocery store, I would not be able to be the successful person I am today. And so that's what you have to remind yourself when you're feeling guilty about pushing your kid and helping them face their fears. They're going to be so limited if we give in to all of those fears. So lovingly walk alongside them, help them face their fears, prompt their coping mechanisms, be models for them in facing your own fears as well. If they see you escaping your fears all the time too, it's going to be hard for them to really bond with you if, well, you're escaping your fears all the time, why can't I? And so be authentic and like, oh, this makes me nervous. I'm trying a new food. I'm not sure how I feel about that, or I have to meet some new people today and I'm kind of nervous about that. So be authentic and you're facing your fears too. That'll help them like not feel so alone. So next, I want to talk about some studies that I found really interesting that kind of support what I'm talking about today. In this first study, it really talks about the costs of when we give in to avoidance. The study analyzed when people have experiential avoidance or avoiding as a coping mechanism, their anxiety really grows. So, what that study is talking about is just that if we allow escape for our anxiety, anxiety will get bigger. And so, that's something you really have to keep in mind because that's such a common thing that we want to protect our kids from, and we love them and we feel so bad seeing them be anxious. But if we have a consistent pattern where they're escaping things that make them feel afraid, they will feel afraid more often. And as a loving parent, you do not want your child to be afraid more often. So if you want to reduce their fear, then we need to expose them to their fears in a loving and controlled manner. The next study I thought was really, really interesting. It talks about how a person who is prone to experiential avoidance is higher risk for developing pathology, drug and alcohol problems, and it lowers their mental health. So this chronic escape behavior where we're trying to stay in our comfort zone, where we're trying to avoid fear, it actually develops really horrible mental health. And drug and alcohol is a higher risk because that's an escape behavior. People drink or do drugs to escape that internal feeling that they're feeling. And so really this is so important for us to remember that these exposures are so needed. And if we have a really chronic pattern of escape, it leads to a really miserable life. Your mental health, your anxiety, your depression, your coping mechanisms that you're using typically become very unhealthy. So if we want our kids to cope and if we want our kids to be successful and be happy, we have to help them face their fears. So the comfort zone is this addicting thing that people fall into, right? We love our comfort zone. But the longer we're there, the scarier the outside world gets. And so the smaller and smaller our world becomes, the more time we spend into it. But it's really, really valuable to remember, like, your child might not want to leave their comfort zone. They might really express to you, or young adult might really express to you, this is where I'm happy. I don't want to leave. I have no desire to have friends. I have no desire to have a job. I have no desire XYZ, right? They might be communicating that to you. But the reality is, if you stay in your comfort zone all the time, you will have anxiety. You will have depression. You will not be happy. The research just does not support that leads to a happy life. And so that's where we need to compassionately partner with our child and help push them out of that, because we need to protect them from the path that goes down. Otherwise, your comfort zone becomes this black hole that sucks you in and just eats away at your mental health. So to work on this, we really need to compassionately walk alongside our children. We need to be able to tell them no to things that are unhealthy for them. We need to set clear boundaries. We need to help them face their fears. And then we need to reinforce when they do face their fears. So for example, if a child gets in trouble, say they have problem behaviors at school, they get kicked out, and then they come home and you're like, hey, you can just relax the rest of the day on video games. That behavior got reinforced, right? That means unconsciously in their brain is learning, I got problem behaviors at school, I got sent home, got to do what I want the rest of the day. So that's reinforcing that escape behavior. If a child doesn't want to go to work, or if a child or young adult doesn't want to go to work or doesn't want to do their chores, things like that, and then they get to do fun things instead, we are reinforcing that problem behavior. We are teaching them that this escape is working for them, and the escape will likely increase. So if we want our children to not escape those things, if they do successfully avoid work or avoid school or avoid homework or whatever it is they don't want to do, we need to create contingencies to help them push through that, to help support them and lovingly show them, hey, I'm not, because I love you, I'm not going to let this behavior get reinforced. I don't want you to learn this pattern that escape is good for you, because it's not good for you. It won't help you. It will lead to unhappiness. So if you're going to skip whatever, then there's going to be some consequences at home, and home isn't going to be super fun, you playing video games all day, because escape is not good for you. It could hurt you, and it will hurt you if you have a chronic pattern of it. So I'm going to lovingly walk alongside you and show you that you're okay, and show you that you have more skills than you realize, and I will teach you how to use your coping skills when you're anxious, and I will celebrate with you every time you face something that makes you uncomfortable. But if you escape, I'm not going to reinforce that. So lastly, think about your child, think about your situation, and think about where you're enabling things. So like just thinking on the spot right now with my children, I wake them up every morning. They're old enough, they can wake themselves up. So this is a small way that I'm enabling my children. And so talking about this right now, I'm feeling kind of convicted. Like that's a good next step that I should be working on to increase their independence. So think about your situation. Where can you challenge your kids? Where can you help them be more successful? Are there any ways that you might be enabling escape behavior? And how can you change that? How can you lovingly help them not escape so that they can have the confidence to face the challenges that life will naturally bring? So just keep in mind that it's truly the most loving thing you can do to give them these life skills. Without the life skills of being able to face discomfort, face what you're afraid of, your life becomes so limited. So brainstorm with your team, if you have one, brainstorm with your family on how can we take this up a notch? How can I help my children be equipped to handle these scary things? And then reach out if you want more support, if you want us to walk alongside you to help figure this out. All right, thanks so much for listening, guys. I hope this video was helpful.